Find them, who you are, and all that stuff. Okay.
Hey, we're live, and today, of course, this is Douglas Ferguson. As usual, this is one of my weekly coffee chats, and today I'm here with Cam Hauser of ActionWorks and a good pal, local Austin resident. Although, it's we don't get to share the Austin landscape that often these days due to the pandemic, but it's looking to change sometime soon, and we're still talking about all the repercussions of remote work and remote facilitation and what it means to really level up. Today, we are going to be talking about the impact of the camera lens and also how we think about Zoom fatigue, what the new recent Stanford research tells us, and how we've interpreted it as professional facilitators. Welcome, Cam. It's going to be a blast chatting with you today.
What is up, Douglas? It's a pleasure to see all y'all. And by see, I just mean sense your energy and your greatness floating around these pixels and us connecting in this limited time we have in this session to this limited time we have on this earth. Let's make it worth it.
Yes, awesome. I love it, man. And it's such a pleasure. It's like there's a few people in this world that whenever you get a chance to be around them, chat with them, it's always great conversations. I'd say you're on the top of my list. So excited to dig in today. And it's just a shame Dan Austin isn't here with us right now, but we'll make do. We'll make do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right. So let's talk about the camera lens. You've been working on a course, actually, running cohorts through a fantastic course that's actually not only helping people level up their online meeting game, their streaming game, but also helping people find jobs. So tell me about this and tell me how the camera lens plays a role there.
Okay. So, y'all, we are on camera more than we ever thought we'd be. Also, I just need to introduce y'all to a friend who will be here for some of the session.
What? Is that Grumpy Cat?
Yeah, this is Grumpy Cat, and she's always in a bad mood. So that's the thing. We are stuck on camera more than ever. And I have been teaching in Zoom for quite a while. And so right after the pandemic got started, I started making a series of videos about camera confidence and about camera presence and what our relationship is to the camera and how that whole thing works. And then the pandemic did not wrap up and become this nice, cute, little adorable thing we could just leave in the review. It became our world. So with the momentum from that, I ended up starting this class just for folks who don't really feel comfortable on camera. Because if you're a knowledge worker, it's part of our life these days. And there are folks who just as soon as you turn the camera on, you can feel your nerves rising, the hairs in the back of your neck coming up. And maybe you can get through it, but as soon as you turn the camera off, you have this huge exhale of, oh gosh, I'm glad that's over. And that's not cool if you're doing this several times a day. So what this course is it's called Minimum Viable Video, and it's for people to be great on Zoom, and it's for people to learn how to do pre-recorded video. The reason I'm such a big fan of pre-recorded video, of making videos, is that if you get a good take that's sending the right message, you can just use that again. It allows you to clone yourself, right? The version of you that gives a great 3 or 4 minute chat on YouTube that explains some thought leadership position you have or some knowledge you have, you only have to get that right once. And the rest of the time, YouTube servers do the work for you. And so that's what we do in this course. But we also teach really non-traditional kind of approaches to video. As Douglas mentioned, one of the things we teach our people to do is to, if you're applying for a job or trying to get some work, no one is used to getting a little 30-second, minute-long video that's decently produced that comes along with it. So, what I encourage people to do is if you're trying to get a job, send your resume, but then send a link to a YouTube video that's unlisted. Unlisted means that nobody else can see it. And it just says, hey, how's it going? I'm excited about this opportunity. I thought I would share a few things that don't quite fit on the resume. And now they could see you much more as a human being instead of just, black ink on a resume. And just the reason this is top of mind is I got a message on LinkedIn a couple of days ago of a woman who had done this camera confidence challenge we've been doing. She actually landed her job from it. And obviously it wasn't 100% because of the video, but it's what separated her from the rest of the pack. So that was just really cool to get. And frankly, I'm just really, really pumped about this work because our relationship to the camera can get kind of strained, as I mentioned. And it's really powerful to, when that flips, to instead of being drained and nervous from doing it, you feel energized and excited. And so that's kind of the thing that I love doing about this kind of work.
I found that Loom has been such a powerful tool for us internally to just convey meaning and make sure understanding and alignment has reached a new level. And I've personally, just recording a quick video can, especially if we're trying to pass off a fairly complicated task,
Yeah.
It's just like you provide some instruction, give some detail, and then I just found the back and forth has been drastically diminished, and it creates a little more connection because we can kind of leave behind, and then we drop those in a Google Drive folder, and we can use them again later sometime. So I love that. Record once, use it again later.
Yeah, it's really interesting because documentation is this word that just makes you kind of throw up in your mouth a little bit. It's just like, oh God, I don't want to do that. But Loom is basically documentation that's capturing the processes in your company. And the thing that's great about it is, a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000,000. If I am like having a problem with my technology or product, I do not want to Google it and find the manual. I jump on YouTube and I watch someone using it because it's just such a faster way to get information. And another thing that I'm really big on in that exact same kind of internal context is if you need to give feedback to someone, let's say you're a manager who's need to talk to one of your direct reports, or you need to communicate something to your boss, to someone above you. If you do it by Loom, which has your voice in it, or if you just send them a video, that you've recorded, you can get subtlety and nuance there that can get missed in an email. For me to write a really perfect email that might deliver some feedback that might have some constructive criticism in it. I hate the compliment sandwich of say the nice thing and then the real thing you're trying to say and then another nice thing. Everybody knows the compliment sandwich. I think that's garbage.
I always heard that was the shit sandwich.
Yeah. But a video means that you can smile. And you can convey warmth, and you can say, hey, I'm going to give you some feedback here where I need some changes, but I want to let you know that we're really happy about the work you're doing. And there's something about hearing your voice and seeing someone's face when they deliver that just makes it seem a lot more authentic. And it gets rid of this kind of corporate notion of how everything has to be stiff all the time. So I'm a really big fan of the humanity that video adds to the workplace.
So good. So let's talk a little bit about the lens itself, and because it can be obtrusive at times. Also, I've been thinking a lot about just the physical placement of the lens and the decision. It's like a new consideration with ergonomics. Like, where does it sit, and then how does that impact where you sit, and the constraints as far as where you can move and where it makes sense to be and exist during the meeting. I've often found lately that sometimes I just look at the little reflection of the light in my lens because I know that's where I'm going to make eye contact. Even though it feels so bizarre and foreign to me, I'm looking right at that reflection so that there's a little more connection with my audience, even though I personally am just looking at a white dot.
Yeah. That's it's so funny that the way that these changes influence us. The pandemic and Zoom basically made us cinematographers, ergonomics experts, and interaction designers. And that's in addition to what we were doing before. So yeah, the placement of it matters, and framing really has a big impact, right? It's one thing that if you're really low and you're leaning back, if you're cinematography like that. It's another thing if you're a giant and you're looking down. These things, there's a reason that those are filmmaking techniques that can establish a mood in a film. And we are workers who are engaging with our coworkers and our colleagues and our friends. And I care a lot about how I'm perceived by them and how it feels to interact with them. Because if they enjoy interacting with me, we're going to have better results with what we do. So yeah, getting the camera height right, eye level, so it makes it feel like you're directly there. Decent framing, so you're either in the middle of the frame or have a little bit of the rule of thirds, which honestly, I used to talk about the rule of thirds a lot, which is where you put yourself in 1/3 of the camera instead of in the middle. It's all opinion, but doing it right in the middle is really good. And the other thing is just, again, getting your lighting and the basic aspects of production so that you look like you're there, because it's not fair that someone's ideas might be incredibly strong and valid, but because someone else has an amazing setup with perfectly framed shot, their voice is heard better and their message resonates better, right? And so part of what I really get excited about teaching is, the internet is supposed to be this great democratizer that gives us all access to share our ideas and grow what we want to do. But there's some limitations there. But the cool thing about it is it's super learnable. Not to mention the fact that Zoom touches up our appearance. So I definitely have that box checked where it makes you look better and hide some of your wrinkles, which is also like really funny to think about.
Yeah, no doubt. It's like, I always was amused. It's like they didn't go so far as Snapchat, right? It's like we don't look like airbrushed models, but
yeah. Well, Douglas, in our 5 minutes, do you want me to hit that Stanford piece real quick?
Yes, I do want to touch on that because it's really important. We hear this word Zoom fatigue thrown around a lot, and I think it's like not fully understood. And also, I do want to unpack what we were talking about around just the blame that's thrown on the technology and how we as facilitators and meeting guides need to take a little bit of ownership of that as well. So let's touch on that.
Yeah, okay. So this is actually really great. One of the first larger scale studies on Zoom fatigue came out a couple of weeks ago by a professor at Stanford named Jeremy Bailenson. And they got this decently sized sample of Zoom users and really broke it down, trying to figure out what was causing Zoom fatigue and what were the remedies to that. Some of it was related to when you're in Zoom, you see yourself, you see your face there. And there's a lot of studies that show that looking in a mirror and seeing yourself a lot is not associated with generally good psychological wellness. There's nothing about Zoom is that it's incredibly convenient for us, but it changes the dynamic in that we're making direct eye contact with people in ways that we historically don't do that much. When you meet with someone in person, it's not normal for you just to be staring at them the whole time, right? Whereas in Zoom, that's the default setup. What that's doing is mirroring eye contact, and direct eye contact is the kind of thing that there's studies that show that can trigger the fight or flight response. It's neurologically kind of taxing on us. So there's a lot of reasons why Zoom fatigue happens. But as far as the 4 things you can do, the first one is just shrink your Zoom screen. So you don't need to have it fully maximized, seeing all those faces as big as you can. One way to give yourself a break from that is just to shrink the screen, right? So that it's just a much smaller portion of the window, and the avatars, the little thumbnails of those people, is just a lot smaller. The second one is to hide self-view. And there's an option where, the same, the ellipses, the 3 dots where you can rename yourself, you can go there and click hide self-view, which just takes you out of there. So now you don't see yourself in the Zoom grid. And that can also give you a little bit of a break. The third thing is to have an adjustable setup. And what they means by adjustable is keyboard monitor orientation such that you can stand up and walk around a little bit. You can stand up and maybe back up and get in the back of the frame and just pace a little bit. And that's totally fine and a good thing to do. As office workers, we know that it's not a good idea to be sitting in a chair literally all day. But one of the great things about Zoom is it allows that. It allows us to get up and pace around, and you can still do that and be within the shot. And the final thing is to go audio only. And what Professor Bailenson means by that is not only turn off, hide self-view and turn off your cameras, but don't even look at the screen. Like, keep your headset on, ideally a wireless headset, and go look at the wall. Just don't look at pixels. And if you do these 4 things, that'll help remove Zoom fatigue. But I think they miss something pretty important, which is a topic really near and dear to Douglas and I and the whole voltage control family is, Don Norman is this famous product designer. And what he talks about is if you're a user of a product or a piece of technology and it doesn't work, we tend to say like, oh, I didn't figure it out. Like, oh, I'm not good at using this tool. And what Don Norman says is like, nope, that is not the right relationship. It's not your fault as the user. The product designer, that person is the one who should make the product easy to use. And you shouldn't feel bad if you can't figure it out. Well, let's imagine that a meeting or a Zoom session, that's a product. Well, the product designer of a meeting, that's the facilitator. That's the person who is leading the meeting. That's the person who is running the workshop. That's the person who is in charge of owning the agenda. If people are feeling Zoom fatigue, it means that person, they should be adding breaks. They should be reminding people, hey, you can go audio only. They should be playing music every once in a while. It is, I think, incumbent upon them, in addition to just owning the content of what's discussed, but own the experience of that meeting. And so that's just, I think, one more reason why being good on camera is important, is understanding that sort of thing and understanding what facilitation means. So that's a quick rundown on it, but I thought there were some pretty good tips. And again, the big thing I think is learn how to run a meeting in a way that doesn't get people to fall asleep. Not because you're worried about people falling asleep, but if you want the meeting to have impact, if you want the outcomes to happen and success to be part of what you're doing, you need people engaged. And you could say the most important thing in the world, but if people are falling asleep and not paying attention, no action is going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. I think driving engagement, using the same techniques that we would have used prior to the pandemic to create great engaging workshops and meetings are the same things that we want to do in the pandemic. And I feel like, these aren't new problems. It's just the remote work, the pushing things through this new technology or this new virtual perspective has just exacerbated problems that already existed. Yeah. So I want to cut to a story we have, or a question we have here from Greg's story around, what do you do or how do you support people that don't have a ball or pad and that might have Zoom shame around their backgrounds? And one thing I'll mention is, I don't know if any of you have run into this, but we've definitely facilitated sessions where folks had issues with virtual backgrounds causing them, not necessarily seizures, but similar types of, eye-brain issues with just the fact that when the software is trying to do virtual background stuff, it creates definitely some artifacts that can be negatively impact some folks. And so, virtual backgrounds aren't necessarily the answer in all situations. And we've definitely had folks get foam core or even just like, there's a fake background of some sort that they can put up behind themselves. In fact, one thing to do is if you're really crafty and really like to get out there, I've seen folks carbonize wood. So just take a flame. There's lots of, you can look this up on YouTube, but you can create some really beautiful patterns over just like a simple piece of wood. So you don't have to get too expensive or crazy with it. But you can cover up those environments that, you aren't so proud of, I guess.
Yeah, I'll dive in there real quick, Greg. I think that's a great question because in the Zoom era that we're in right now, your background is kind of like your attire. You wouldn't want to roll into a meeting in flip-flops and a tank top. So I get it, right? Your background is a way to communicate really artful, elegant things about you and set a vibe about who you are. And I like having a really classy, well-done background in case I forgot to shave that day or I'm wearing crappy clothes, because again, it helps kind of counterbalance that. So that's a great question. I'm not a big fan of virtual backgrounds just because artifacts happen all the time. You drift in and out. Sometimes it looks like you're in a sci-fi movie. So some techniques are, one, you can just buy a good old green screen. If you do a green screen, a virtual background will work better, of course. But I've seen a lot of creative techniques where the thing about it is your Zoom frame doesn't have to be that big. So even if you live in a place that doesn't have an infinity pool behind it, you can usually find some part of where you live where the background is decent enough. Another trick that I've seen people do is, I teach a lot of people about YouTube and starting YouTube channels, is that there's some YouTubers who, what they do is they make the background of their closet their background. So they go in their closet, move the clothes over, and then set up that with their background. And the other thing about using a good background is, I think it's less important that it be pristine and pure and clean and just have some personality in it, right? I've got a cactus behind me. I've got this weird German sci-fi movie poster behind me. I don't think you can see it because of the frame, but I want to have a poster that, one, will get people to ask me questions about it, because engagement usually leads me to where I'm going. But it's also something where if you've got some personality behind it, they'll remember you, right? A lot of my work and a lot of people I'm teaching are pitching, where they're selling. And the people that you're pitching to, the investors or whoever it is, they're on Zoom calls all day. So if you have a unique background, it's one thing that helps them remember you a little bit more. So the back of the closet always works. And I would just think about adding some personality. And when in doubt, if you just have a messy nightmare behind you, people will get lost in the mess and you'll be good there too.
One thing to think about there is if you do have access to a camera that you can, a DSLR that you can run through a cam link or other device, you can actually step down the camera and increase your depth of field so your background's blurred out. So it kind of doesn't matter what's there; it's all blurry, and so that's a technique. Also, some comments here from the audience around cheap green screen material from a craft store. Chris is talking about natural lighting. I will say the thing to think about natural lighting, a mistake I see people making a lot, is they sit with they think that it'll look beautiful with their backyard as their background. And they're thinking, oh, the natural light come in, this will be great. But then the problem is you're backlit. And if you're backlit, you're going to be a silhouette, just like black silhouette, which is not good. So you really want those windows on your face. So if you can turn your laptop, your camera, whatever, so that you're facing the window, that natural light is hitting you. And to Cam's point, if there's a closet wall or something bare that you can have there that's not too distracting, or as a way to blur it out, that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, and when you're backlit, which is again the big source of light behind you shining into the camera, that gives you the FBI informant look, which is not good. And if your technology is really bad, we call those hostage videos because they're so badly produced. So it's really interesting that whole world is like all the metaphors we use to describe that. But yeah, avoid being backlit for sure. And I will tell you that I would focus on your lighting and how your face looks far more than your background. So a great background where you are poorly lit is not what you want to do. You'd much rather be you really, really well lit, and we can see your facial expressions and let your warmth come through. All that, the 95% of communication that's not verbal, you want that to come through versus having a really great background that no one really cares about, for sure.
Awesome. Hey, this is really great. I love how we got real technical and some real good advice there. Greg, thanks for that question, because we might not have gone that angle. So it seems like that was well positioned and well timed. So thank you so much. And with that, we're definitely over. Yeah. So Cam, it's been a pleasure. Do you want to leave folks with any final thoughts or anything?
I did. I wanted to leave my Twitter real quick, which is @CAHauser. And thank you, Douglas, for throwing that in there. And the final thing I wanted to leave was, if you're interested in developing your camera confidence, whether it's pre-recorded videos or it's, again, just really developing your skills on Zoom. And this entire project, what we teach, is typically around smartphones. So we've got this free camera confidence challenge. It's a 14-day email series that basically, instead of having this really jarring transition from I'm never on camera to I'm on it and I hate it, it's just gradual kind of things. We do exercises like have you hold up the camera and talk to it when it's not even on. So it's just a little more gentle. And Douglas put the link in the chat, but it's at actionworks.co/CCC. But Douglas, thanks for letting me be part of this, and good luck to everyone out there who's living in the Zoom grid these days.